Hi, I'm RodGilley. Today I offer up my review of We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Before we get started, I'd like to offer a shout out to Sin at Sin's Book Nook. This is one of the best book reviewers I've found on YouTube. She's a fantastic booktuber. She's got a unique personality that, oh, I don't know, if there's any such thing as a modern day hippie, she'd be pretty darn close. Every one of her videos are a lot of fun to watch. She also does outstanding reviews on some really great books. I highly recommend her show. I think you'll enjoy it very much. Check out the links in the description for a couple of books, and of course, the link in the description to her channel on YouTube. Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I absolutely love this cover. I think it's fantastic. I don't know who the artist was, but boy, did he capture the characters and the overall theme of the story. I mean, just look at these faces. In the foreground, you've got Mericat, the main character who tells the story, and she is such a unique character that has got so many different levels. Just behind her is her older sister, Constance, and she really shows, in this picture, it really shows Constance has such a bunch of fear inside her. And the artist just did a fantastic job with the cover of this book. It's just absolutely awesome. Most of the story takes place at the Blackwood Estate. It's an old mansion, a once glorious dwelling that time has chipped away at. Beyond their property is a village. Now, I have some pretty good pictures, I think, that I was able to find to help illustrate this video and the story. But try as I may, I could not find any non-copyrighted pictures that would adequately show you the villagers. So I'm going to try to conjure in your mind an image of what they look like. So if you can, think of the old Boris Karloff Frankenstein movie, when the villagers in that movie are chasing after the creature and chasing him up to the tower, and how totally crazy and insane they were with pitchforks and torches. Now, the villagers in this story are not the same. I'm trying to create an abstract picture in your mind of what these villagers are like. They are quite bizarre. The story is told in first person by the main character, Mary Catherine Blackwood, aka Mericat. It depicts pretty much their day-to-day life of Mericat and her older sister, Constance. Now, Mericat is, I think I heard somewhere she's supposed to be like 17 or 18. But throughout the entire story, it read as she was more like about 11 or 12. But she is very intelligent and kind of a multi-layered, oh, let's just say that she would perplex just about any psychologist. And she spends a lot of time in her own mind and in other places. And she's very aware and, again, very intelligent. But she is a unique character. Then we meet her sister, Constance, who's older. I think she's supposed to be somewhere around 25. And, but poor Constance, I feel sorry for her throughout the entire story. She's way overworked. All the poor girl does is cook and clean and take care of Mericat and take care of Uncle Julian. And she has agoraphobia and anthropophobia. I hope I said those right. And those two phobias are a fear of leaving your home and a fear of facing people. And she has these phobias very strongly, I think. And again, it just adds to Constance being a sweet but very sad character. Then another character in the story that stands out is Uncle Julian. Uncle Julian was at one time, I'm sure, quite an aristocrat. I'm sure he was a prominent and noble man. But a past event that happened was one of two tragedies in the story. And Uncle Julian was touched by that tragedy and left him in a wheelchair and left him in quite a bad state of mind. His entire presence in the story, the poor man is repeatedly studying and writing and noting the events of the day that led up to pretty much a massacre of the Blackwood family. And he's completely obsessed with that. That's pretty much all he thinks about. He's a very nice man, and he proves to have some strength here and there, but he clips in and out of current reality and the event of the past. Now, there is another character in the story, Cousin Charles. I thought he was pretty much a waste of flesh, and I didn't even bother to try to find a picture to depict him. I didn't have any use for him at all, but he does indirectly cause a major event in the story. So he has to be there. But that's about it with Charles. That's all I think of him. This story is so well written that I was hard-pressed to put it down to deal with everyday, day-to-day life. I have a lot of that between my businesses and my personal matters. I have very long days, and it is hard for me to fit in the time to read. That's why my TBRs don't have 10 books on them. I just don't have the time to read that many. But this book, We Have Always Lived in the Castle, boy, I just couldn't put it down. Shirley Jackson did a fantastic job with the atmosphere of the story and I guess you call it the theme of the story. She has masterful character development. You really understand who these people are, and I believe you'll very much care about these characters. You can't help but care about them. They're sort of victims, but they're also just, I don't know, it's hard to describe them, but each one stands out. Mericat, Constance, and Uncle Julian are fantastic characters. Now, being a writer myself, when I got to about the 70 or 80% point in the book, I couldn't help but have thoughts pop in my mind as to what the ending would be of this story. And I had about 3 scenarios that I thought made really good sense, that based on the history of the story and the current events in the story, the characters of the story, it would make sense if one of these 3 outcomes ended the tale. And one in particular, as a horror writer myself, I would have written this ending. And I really think it would have been very appropriate for the story. Well, when I continued reading on to the end of the story, the ending was completely different than any idea that I had. Now, I'm not going to say it was a bad ending. It certainly wasn't. But for me personally, I didn't like the ending. It just didn't fit with where I thought the story was going as I followed along with the storyline. There really was possible better endings. So that was my only flaw in this story, and that was a very personal thing. You may not feel it at all. You may be thrilled with the ending. But for me personally, it just didn't quite cut it. And that's why this otherwise easily a 5-star story, it's freaking great. I highly, highly recommend it. But for me personally, I had to drop a star for the ending. So I rated this a 4-star story. But I don't want that to misguide you that I think it's bad in any way. It really isn't. This is a gripping, wonderful tale that I think you'll really enjoy reading. Now, I read this book on my Kindle, and I usually do that. When I go to review a new book, I go to read a new book, I'll either get it at the library or have it downloaded on my Kindle, just simply because it doesn't cost very much. It's usually a lot cheaper. Now, the really outstanding books that I read that I very much enjoy, I will go back and I'll buy a hard copy to put on my bookshelf. And that means that's a book I would absolutely read again. And I would be very proud to put it on my bookshelf. Now, the first book in recent times that landed on that shelf was a very special edition of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I paid a pretty good penny for it, and it was worth every one of those pennies. Fantastic story, in my opinion. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Oh, yes, I am going to buy a hard copy of that book and put it on my bookshelf. It really is a great story. So, I recommend that you go to Amazon or your local bookstore and get you a copy of this book. I'd love for you to read it and enjoy it. And come back here and leave a little message in the comments if you like the story a lot, if you agree with me that the atmosphere and the character development are awesome, or if you didn't particularly like the story. And of course, I'm going to ask, what did you think of the ending of the story? So I sure hope you'll come back, leave some comments, let me know what you thought of this great tale. Well, that's the end of this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back soon with another one. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Don't forget that I placed in the description a link to Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. There's also a link in the description to my little book, The Hero, the Fear, and the Date. Check them both out on Amazon. I think you'll enjoy both of the books very much. Well, that concludes my review of Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I hope you enjoyed this video, and be looking for the next one to come, Tales from Mr. Macabre by Daniel R. Hayes. Coming soon. Have a wonderful day.